How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is April 28, 2018, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. Friday night edition of the show here. Lots of news, including the Greatest Royal Rumble, which is in the books.
It wasn't the greatest.
No, this was a very, and I mean very glorified house show. The winner of the Royal Rumble.
I would definitely not call it that. I know people call it that, but I don't. I mean, there was more money spent on this show than any show this year.
I'm talking in the ring. This was a house show. To the point where I had people that were emailing me saying, I saw that exact same match move for move at the house show this past weekend.
House shows don't have Undertaker. They don't have Triple H. They don't have Chris Jericho. They don't have Rey Mysterio.
It's a glorified house show.
No, it was.
This was not a pay-per-view level show.
No, well, but there've been worse pay-per-view shows than this. But it was a lot. It was a. I don't know how to. It can't be judged as a house show or a pay-per-view show. It was a paid commercial, basically, and it had wrestling on it. And I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting how this is judged historically. I mean, it could be judged favorably. My gut feels like it's going to be considered kind of like a dark day, but it's really hard to say right now because the future will kind of tell. I was very, very watching the show. I ended up being. I mean, it was what I knew it would be, but actually seeing it kind of repulsed me in a lot of ways. I mean, the political stuff and just the announcing. It was like everybody was uncomfortable. You could tell, like the announcers. I've never seen a worse announced WWE show except for the one that. Remember the one with the guy from Baltimore, that there was a King of the Ring from Baltimore years ago with Art Donovan. So that was worse because Art Donovan was just completely lost. But I mean, as far as like a regular announcing crew, that I don't know if they were jet lagged, I don't know if they were scared to death. And then there were also things that were out of their control, like the Lesnar finish that they didn't know how to handle, or that ridiculous spot in the Jinder Mahal Jeff Hardy match where they were all over the place, which, again, that's not their fault. That was a guy selling when he shouldn't have sold and them trying to figure out how to cover it. And, that's not their problem. But there were other things that just, you could really they were very, very fake. WWE announcing is always kind of fake, but this was a different level of fake. I noticed it from the first match, and they're very, you could see that they had a lot of, they were basically afraid of what they were saying. They were afraid to say something wrong. They had to put over, Saudi Arabia constantly. And I think that, I don't know if they weren't comfortable with it. It's just really hard to say. But overall, partially their fault. Again, and a lot of it could be jet lag too. As far as like missing stuff or Sergeant Slaughter being dead, or which that was an unfortunate miss, whatever. I don't really, but there was a lot of that kind of stuff during the show. So there was that, and it's just it was really uncomfortable. The matches, ranged from good to kind of bad. I thought the Rumble was had a lot of had some good stuff. It went really long. When you have 50 guys, it's going to. I thought that the Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns match was horrible. I mean, just horrible. I mean, it was the exact same match as WrestleMania in some ways, except it had already been done. So you're kind of like watching this rerun. And the only thing I could think of is that either Vince or Paul, and when Paul, I say Paul Heyman, or Lesnar, or Roman, or whatever. However, whoever it was, I don't know who agented it. I know Michael Hayes was the agent of the Mania match, but I almost thought it was one of those things where, well, it didn't work at Mania because the crowd wouldn't let it work, so we're just going to do the same match to prove that it works. And unfortunately, because we've seen the Mania match, the same match to me didn't work again because I'd already seen it. And, the finish was botched, obviously, so you have that problem. I just thought that match I just thought it sucked. The AJ Nakamura match was really good, but it had a bad finish. And then the ladder match was really good. And then the rest was just kind of there. I thought Cena and Triple H was not a good showing by either guy. I mean, it wasn't like it was a bad match, but it just felt like by the numbers.
It was a house show match. If they would have done this match on a house show, that's the exact match they would have done.
Yeah, I will say Cena and Triple H felt like, yeah, but they're two guys that Cena barely works house shows. Triple H never works house shows. But if they were doing a house show match, it probably would be like that. Other than they wouldn't kick out of each other's. And then again, maybe they would kick out of each other's move because they're big stars in a house show. But yeah. I mean, it just was. But it was like slow. I mean, Triple H, I don't know. I think that they would work quicker I mean, I've seen a lot of Cena house show matches. And he usually works much quicker than this, but
he is. The problem is he has slowed down so much in the last year.
Yeah, no, this
extraordinarily he's slowed down.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a different John Cena. I mean, we've seen it. You're right. This is different John Cena. So yeah, it was. I think the house show match would probably be worse. Undertaker and Rusev was better than I expected, but Undertaker's just so limited now that. That's about as good as you're going to get out of it. But it was all right. But I mean, to me, it's like it wasn't about. This show was not about quality. This was a political statement, and it was, it's like it was a very uncomfortable political statement in a lot of ways. I want to say a couple of things about this. First of all, I do not begrudge WWE doing the show. They've done shows in Saudi Arabia before. The idea of doing a show there, it is what it is. Okay. So that's not a problem. I do begrudge them, I mean, they got paid a lot of money to, say how great Saudi Arabia was to the rest of the world. That's what this was. That I didn't like because it's Saudi Arabia and there's just a lot of reasons for that. And it's, it's just the whole... Everything, I mean, and it's not just the fact that the women weren't allowed to perform. I mean, and again, it wasn't even not allowed to perform. They weren't even there. Okay, they weren't allowed to do. Were not allowed to bring women to do backstage interviews. Stephanie McMahon was not allowed. Triple H, Vince, and Shane and Undertaker and all those guys were dining with the royal family, and Stephanie was not allowed to do that. I mean, this is, I don't care how you say it, whether it's whatever, it's just too ugly for me. I mean, people can rationalize it all they want in their own way. I've seen people all day try to rationalize it. I'm not buying it. The idea is like, well, they're going to get better. Okay. This is what kills the argument they're going to get better. 4 years ago, Sami Zayn worked in Saudi Arabia. This time he was not allowed. That's going backwards. That's not going forwards. Okay? Now, maybe in some ways they have gone forwards in those 4 years in the sense of women are now allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. 2 years ago, they were not allowed to drive. So that's forward. But that's, how far behind the times that is? And you can talk about cultural differences. Cultural differences to me, okay? Cultural differences to me are, if you, this is a weird wrestling analogy, okay? But there was okay. When Billy Robinson and Peter Maivia are in Japan, and this is 1968 or 69, okay? And Peter Maivia is from Samoa, and they live a certain way. Billy Robinson is from England, and they live a certain way. And Peter Maivia was eating food with his hands, which Billy Robinson thought was disgusting because where he comes from, that's disgusting. Where Peter Maivia comes from, it's fine. And it turned into a big brawl, but that's a different issue. The point is, that's cultural differences, okay? Beheading people because they're gay, women being treated as second-class citizens to the point that, they're barely, they're not allowed to attend things unless they're accompanied by a male in certain things, such as this show. Women being essentially considered property. It was only, are things better? Yeah, they're better, but that's not cultural differences. That's gender, racial, whatever. That's discrimination, and I'm sorry. Discrimination's ugly. I don't care what culture you're in. And yes, one of the things that really bothers me is people go, well, what about the United States? And it's like, every single time I bring this up, I always bring up how ugly things were in our country, and sometimes even are in our country. Yet, okay, in this situation, okay, we're still, it's that's not a defense. The fact that our country had things that just that make me furious. My mother's best friend at the home that she's in is 98-year-old Japanese woman who actually was interned during World War II. So I've talked, and it's like, and it is horrible that our country did that. And and there are so many horrible things that I could say about what our country has done in the past, and sometimes and does now, as far as that goes. Okay, but it's still pale in comparison to beheading gay people. Okay, so you can't. I'm sorry, but I cannot accept this place is so wonderful, and we're gonna tell you how great this place is when they're doing things like they're doing. And I'm not even talking about some of the other things they're doing. I'm just talking about institutional racism, not allowing people to perform on a show that would normally be allowed to perform on a show, not just because of their gender, but because of where they come from. And again, in one case, going backwards, not going forwards. In another case, well, maybe, look, maybe in 10 years, they'll allow women to perform. That's well and good. In 10 years, maybe I'll have a different viewpoint on this. And maybe, people are going, well, WWE coming's going to help them change. And it's like, that is fucking bullshit, okay? WWE was paid to give a political advertisement. They will make changes how they ever want to make changes. And they may have people who want to make changes. And that's well and good in time. But WWE is not going to have any influence whatsoever on their changes. If WWE is going to have influence on their changes, they would go in there and go, you know what? We won't put women wrestlers on this show, okay, because you're not comfortable with it. And we won't have them perform in front of your people, but let them come backstage and do interviews. Your audience doesn't even have to see it, but that's a little bit of a change, okay? If that happened, I'd go, hey, you know what? It's a small thing that didn't happen. I saw no evidence of any small things other than a guy being told a week ago that, you can't come, or we don't want you coming, or you're off the show, and all the women, again, not being on the show. And I'm sorry, that's just, I can't handle it. I look at the same equivalent. If something like that happened in this country, it would just be, I would just be so furious if they said, like, you can't perform here because you're from whatever, you're from Syria, you're from Iran, your color is different than my color, you can't perform on my show, even though you would be performing in any other place. It's like, I'm sorry, but that's a line that I can't go through, and I know they're getting a ton of money, and that's why they did it. But if they just did the show and they didn't say how great this place was, and that's all it was, I would feel a lot different about the show. But they didn't. It was very transparent what this was, and there was no subtlety to it. Even if there was subtlety, I would say the same thing. But this was just the commentators having to do that. It was like, man, it was just so bad. It was like watching, some, propaganda from, a war from 50 years ago. I mean, that's 60 years ago, 70 years ago, more like 70 years ago. But I'm watching in 2018, so I'll probably have more to say on other things. But so that was my negativity on it. Like I said, I don't begrudge him for doing a show. I don't begrudge him for taking the money. Would I have done in the same situation? No. But and the idea of people go, well, their stockholders would be really mad. You know what? Let me say this: if it came out that there was all this money that they were being offered, and they said, you know what? We're turning down this money, and this is why. Their stockholders, you really think that they're going to be mad? They may be quietly mad, okay? They might be. They might be quietly mad, but you know what? They would get so much more respect for it, and in the end, it would be better for the company because the company would be a respectable company. Instead, it's what it is. It's a wrestling company. Look, and, people are just trying to argue, well, whatever, look, I don't believe there's a wrestling company around that would have turned down that money. So this is not about WWE. Well, it is about WWE because this is the case with them, this on this show. But it is, but whatever wrestling company did it, it would still be a bad thing. Because like I said, if New Japan was offered a show and they said, you know what, we want you to cut, we're going to give you a bunch of money, but we don't want any of your Americans on the show because we don't like Americans in our country. I think if it was the amount of money that these guys are being offered, I believe that New Japan would take that deal. I could be wrong. I would hope I'm wrong, but I don't believe I'd be wrong. Just like I don't believe that they would turn this down. So this is not something of, oh, well, what about this company? I believe every wrestling company would do this. Maybe there's a wrestling company that would just say, I don't care what the price tag is, or this is a line we're not going to cross. But still, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make spreading the message during the commentary and in the interviews and in the videos and in all the stuff of the people on the talent on social media saying what a great place this is. I don't know. I thought it was a very ugly day for the profession. That said, as far as the show goes, I didn't think it was a bad show. I thought it was a nice show. A couple bad finishes, but that's about it.
Well, start here at the beginning. Triple H, John Cena was the opener. Claimed they both requested to open the show so they could be part of history. I think it's probably because they knew it was going to be a long show, and you want to get there before the crowd got tired. Although this crowd, didn't necessarily get it wasn't. The crowd didn't necessarily. They were on and off all night, depending on who was out there.
Yeah, there was weird stuff. Was it the Nakamura match where they were paying no attention to the match?
They did do the wave again.
Well, it wasn't just the wave. There was a lot of points in the match where something was going on in the crowd. I mean, you could see the crowd even the ringsiders are like turning their back and looking away, which actually happened a lot during the show. But it was more than just the wave. There was things there were a couple of times in matches where you could hear crowd reaction that had absolutely nothing to do with the match. So it was like, oh, something's going on in the crowd that we're not seeing. So
this is from a friend of mine who was at the building. He said, during Nakamura and AJ, fans were actually having fun doing the wave, chanting random soccer chants. They tried so hard to like the match, but it seemed they didn't care nor understand that the match ended in a countout. The casuals were very confused. So that's the...
Well, the count's a completely different issue but it was during the match. They didn't, I mean, I actually thought AJ and Nakamura had a really good match, but it was hurt by the crowd, complete indifference to it, and reacting to everything but the match itself.
So Cena and Triple H come out. They did a bunch of Hogan Warrior spots, the Greco-Roman knuckle lock, bunch of slow motion power spots. Just a very slow match. Cena made a comeback. Hunter cut him off, did a 5-knuckle shuffle of his own. And Cena actually at one point did the spot where he goes for a drop kick off the top or a leg drop and he gets caught and power bombed, which was by far the biggest move he took in this entire match. And finally hit the double A, but Hunter kicked out. Went for another one. Triple H turned into a pedigree. Cena kicked out, so they both kicked out of each other's finish. And finally, Cena hoisted him up out of a crossface, hit the AA, hit a slingshot in the corner, hit another AA, and got the pin. So, I know the idea was to kick out of everybody's finishers and that sort of thing because they're big stars, but the first time that he hit the triple A, or the double A, or the AA, whatever, it's very late, place went nuts. By the time he hit it that third time, they didn't go as nuts. So, they went too long. But it was fine.
I don't think it was too long. It was just what it was.
They passed the peak.
Yeah, I suppose they passed the peak because
in front of this crowd, they didn't need to kick out of that AA.
Agreed, especially in the opening match of the show.
Yes,
but they wanted to do like a big show match, but they didn't do a big show match.
No.
Really. I mean, that's kind of what it was. I kind of want to also make a point, and I guess this is one of the things, because I'm older than a lot of people that are listening to this. So I was actually alive in the 60s when there was a lot of racial turmoil in this country. Not that there isn't now, but there was a lot more then. And every excuse that I heard for what WWE is doing, you got to give them time to change, things like that. Every one of those excuses were the excuses to continue discrimination in places in the United States in the 60s. And probably they were the same excuses, obviously, as long before any of us are born, for, slavery and things like that, continuing slavery. It's like, we've got to, it's slow. It can't, like that. I mean, I heard everything I heard. I think this is what made me so fired up today, is because I'm reading this stuff and it's like, when I was a kid, I read all this stuff, and this was such the wrong side of it. It's like you can make it, you can make excuses for anything, but the reality is that, again, don't like get into bed with people like this unless you're, don't get into bed with, don't be telling me how great they are. Okay. Don't be, it's the same thing that I would hear about, by Southern politicians. Oh, it's so great here. And it's like everyone's happy and it's getting better. It's getting better while still like, double standards and Jim Crow and things like that were still not gone. It's like, when they're gone, let me know. Okay. They're not gone. Don't tell me how great it is.
Cena cut a promo afterwards. Regardless of what is going on in my universe, I was not going to miss this event for anything in the world. Thanked Saudi Arabia for its unmatched hospitality and all the fans for allowing him to be part of something so special.
Mm-hmm. So he's referring to his breakup.
Yes.
They have to. I told you they have to refilm that. They're actually filming the breakup now.
Mm-hmm. We had Kalisto Cedric Alexander. No heat early. Kalisto couldn't get Lucha Chant started. They did pop for some of his high spots. Tilt-a-roll DDT, big comeback. Cedric hit a Michinoku driver for a near fall. Kalisto hit a springboard Spanish fly. Finally went for the Selena del Sol. Cedric turned into a lumbar check for the pin. Cool finish. Pretty much just a match.
I liked the match. I really liked the match. I thought it was one of the better matches on the show. It was a... they both worked hard. They both did cool stuff. It's the best you're going to do. It's the best you're going to do in a match like that. They did the best with what they got. They're not considered stars. The people didn't react to them as stars, but they ended up getting as over as they were going to be able to get. So I liked it. Both guys look really good.
We had the Bar versus Sheamus and Cesaro for the Raw Tag Team titles. Basically a Raw match here. Bray made a comeback. Matt hit Cesaro with the Twist of Fate. Sheamus sent him outside. He was going for the Brogue Kick, but Bray did the bridge, which distracted him. And then Bray hit Sister Abigail. Matt and Bray hit their combo Twist of Fate. Won the match. Won the vacant titles. Your one title change on the show. And that was it.
Yeah, I thought this was just there. I would say if it was a Raw match, we would call it a bad Raw match. I mean, it was the equivalent of a throwaway Raw match as opposed to a championship match on Raw. So, as a title match and as a title change match and all that, below average. I mean, as a match itself, it was there. It didn't suck, but Sheamus and Cesaro are good wrestlers, and this wasn't a match where either of them, especially Cesaro, who's excellent. This wasn't a match where anyone. Actually, I thought that the guy who probably showcased his stuff the best was Bray. But yeah, they didn't really have time. They didn't really do a lot. It was just kind of there.
We had Jeff Hardy, Jinder Mahal for the U.S. title. Jinder got booed a lot coming out. Singh brother interfered for the heat. So this was where they had the spot where Jeff goes up top, goes for the Whisper in the Wind. He missed by a mile. No part of his body came near Jinder. Jinder bumped anyway. Corey just pretty much buried the guy.
Said, not at first. Not at first.
He said perhaps this was some sort of ploy on Jinder's part.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's how bad it was. But it was. He went. Okay. The thing is like they first called it like a miss. Then Jinder goes down delayed or something. Then they pause, and then they're trying to cover it up, and it's almost like, what can you say? It's almost best to just move on, because the more that they talked, and like again, Corey really tried to like come up with some explanation. The more he did, it was almost like digging the hole even deeper. So I thought that the way he handled it was real bad. But the whole match was, the whole match wasn't any good. It was just a bad match.
So Neil tried to interfere. Jeff bumped him off the apron, avoided the Colossus, kicked out when Jinder tried to use his tights for the pin, and then hit the Twist of Fate senton. 1, 2, 3, retain the U.S. title. No switching of belts from one brand to another.
Nope, nothing like that.
Nothing. We had prayer time, at which point we got a video putting over what a beautiful time it was here in Saudi Arabia for all of these people. Jericho did an interview backstage, comedy promo, putting everybody on a list. It kind of looked like he was looking around waiting for a reaction, but everybody was praying so he didn't get one. And he just kept going. Harper and Rowan versus the Usos for the tag titles.
Didn't Daniel Bryan do a promo too?
Yeah, I think he did one as well.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it wasn't much of anything, but he did do it.
Harper and Rowan versus the Usos for the tag titles. Another total SmackDown nothing match. Usos got the blind tag, double kick in the corner.
The one thing I'm going to say about this match is that they didn't have much time, but they worked as hard as they could for the time they were given. It's like you're right. It was just a 5-minute match or whatever it was. Let me see how long it was. I've got it right in front of me. Yeah, it was exactly 5 minutes. Like for the 5 minutes itself, it was all action and good action and hard hitting and they just didn't have the time to build a story. So because of that, it fell flat. It wasn't like it wasn't like it was a bad match. It was I was enjoying it and then it was over. That's all.
Bludgeon sent Jimmy outside, hit the combo powerbomb on Jay, got the pin. We had the Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, Miz Intercontinental title ladder match. Miz got the big fireworks display coming out. They did a couple of dangerous spots. There was one where Joe was going to throw Finn into a ladder that was leaning in the corner, but the ladder fell down before he could do it, so he slammed him onto it, which I think was worse because there's no give like there is when it's leaning in the corner. We had
but what was interesting about that was that was the improvised spot, right?
Yes.
I thought I thought Joe was, because like what I thought was good about this as compared to most of the time when like the ladder fell down, right?
Yes.
It was supposed to be in the corner and it fell down.
Yes.
And usually what would happen is that with a lot of these guys, because you're into this mentality of this is my next spot, you kind of pause, try to figure out what to do, maybe set up the ladder again, stop, set up the ladder again, and then do the planned spot. Joe is just like, I'm going to fight. I mean, it's like it was immediate. It was, I thought it was very professional. He didn't stop for a second and just, it's like I'm in a real match as opposed to, oh my God, my spot got messed up. What do I do? So I was like real impressed with just how, like no hesitation, no anything. It's like natural. Like he's a real pro. So unfortunately, it was a tough spot to take.
So everybody had a chance to shine. Miz ran wild. Finn ran wild. Everyone ends up outside the ring, and Finn's all alone. And this is the finish. He goes to climb. He's right there about to get the belt. And suddenly Seth does a springboard from the apron onto the ladder. He scurries up the ladder. Finn just looks at him. And he grabs the belt and wins.
I know he had to sit there and wait for him to grab the belt because it took too long to get there.
Finn has to be turning heel. You could not have made this guy look like a bigger geek.
I don't know that he is. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, listen, when you think about the finish of this match...
Finn got busted up something fierce in this match.
He did. But think about this match. So, Miz was on Raw. They've spent months talking about how he's going to win the Intercontinental, or he's going to hold the Intercontinental title and break the record.
Well, someday he will.
He gets drafted to SmackDown. This is his last chance for the foreseeable future.
No. He's getting a title shot at Backlash.
Oh, dear Lord.
Damn, it's Seth and Miz at Backlash.
Anyway, the point of this is, if you had put Miz in Finn Balor's spot, this would have been an awesome finish. He's already a heel. He's about to break the record. It gets snatched out by the babyface from underneath him. Instead, they used Finn Balor, who had to stand there like a numbskull while this dude scurried up the ladder and he's right there and he could have grabbed it.
Okay, but the stand there like a numbskull was not planned. That was like unfortunate. You know, the timing just didn't work. So that wasn't like, okay, it's planned to make him look stupid. They weren't planning to make him look stupid. It just, and I don't even think, like, again, like when I was watching it, I didn't necessarily think Finn looked stupid. I saw it was, it was uncomfortable. I mean, and if that's not even the right term, but it was noticeable, I guess is the way. It was noticeable, but not so noticeable that it like really,
Holy smokes, I thought it was.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't bother me so much as I just noticed it. But I really enjoyed the match. They all looked good. They all worked hard. It was all action start to finish. Finn just was all bruised up. His elbow was bleeding. His right eye was bleeding and that was from when Seth Rollins pulled down the belt. The belt, as he pulled it down, smashed Finn right in the eye, which was clearly not planned. And he ended up with his eye all busted up. So it was kind of like, after all that, and he ends up all busted up too.
Then we had this segment. 4 guys who were selected from the WWE tryouts last week in Saudi Arabia. They're all in the ring.
So, interesting thing, if you remember, so they must not have been good because the original idea was that one of them was going to be in the Royal Rumble.
And I have no idea. Listen.
Well, probably it's probably for the. I'm sure it's for the best that didn't happen.
Well, hold on a second. Hiroki Sumi was in the Royal Rumble. Yeah. I don't think he's ever done pro wrestling in his life. He was a sumo guy, and literally all he had to do was get in the ring, look at Mark Henry, and get thrown over the top rope. I'm positive one of these guys could have done that.
Well,
in fact, I think one of them allegedly was he is a pro wrestler in Southern California, and he was here for these tryouts.
Oh,
he was the guy who was the good promo.
Okay, whatever it was, they changed their mind because they had said that when they did the tryout, they said that the best guy at the tryout was getting in the Rumble, and they didn't put anyone in.
Well, maybe they didn't have this idea for this segment, and they figured this segment was a better showcase than having the guy in the Rumble and get eliminated.
And it was. So that very well could be. Yeah.
So they only gave their first names, and one of them was a pretty good promo. So they all wanted to be the first WWE superstars from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Out comes Sean and Arya Daivari. They got tons of heat.
This had more heat than anything else on the show.
Yes.
Waving that Iranian flag in
Saudi Arabia. Can you believe they did this? I mean, obviously you can.
Well,
but it was like...
It's, you know what? It's like, what's funny kind of about it is like, in a sense... I always hated that kind of stuff in pro wrestling, but it's been such a part of pro wrestling for so long that it's just kind of acceptable. So when I'm watching it, I go like, this is really kind of uncomfortable, but guess what? I've seen the exact same thing in my country a million times. So it's, and I never liked it. So I got to just go, okay, I don't like it, but it is what it is, because we've been doing that stuff and, it's just a part of pro wrestling. But like when you see it somewhere else, well, it's the same as if you saw it. It's just pro wrestling. I mean, I'm not. I don't even know what to say about it other than that. But yeah, it got a lot of heat. I mean, they brought in Sean Daivari for this. I mean, they couldn't bring in whatever. Maybe he'll get a job out of this. Who knows?
Well, anyway, the Daivaris buried them. They beat up the Daivaris. Fans loved it, and that was the segment. AJ and Shinsuke Nakamura. This match was way better than WrestleMania, I thought, until this finish.
Agreed.
So they're doing this match, a lot of stuff going on in the crowd. It's way more action-packed than WrestleMania.
This was actually, like, I felt that Nakamura in this match, I mean, AJ's always great, but I felt that, like, Nakamura in this match was motivated in a way that he hasn't been in a while.
He's way better as a heel.
Yeah, but he was even it's not even just that. It just felt like he was just because when he was so much of him since he came to the main roster and a little bit on NXT, but a lot since he came to the main roster has almost been like, I'm not gonna make my, I'm not gonna hurt my body. That's, I'm gonna do what I can do without hurting my body. And in this one, it's not like he did anything dangerous or anything like that, but it was, it was almost like before. It's like, I'm gonna do what I do, and I can get over because I'm really good at getting over. And now this was almost like, I'm going to show that I can go. And he did, which almost is like, well, why didn't he before? It's like, maybe, you know what? Maybe why? Because he probably knew that the finish was going to suck. So it's like, it's like, well, I could have a bad match with a bad finish, or I could have a good match with a bad finish. And it's probably better to have a good match with a bad finish.
Yeah, but you would think you'd be motivated to have a great match at WrestleMania.
He had a good match at WrestleMania, but he didn't have a great match, yeah.
No, it may just be better that, it's he was having to do a babyface match at WrestleMania, and this was a match with a real story behind it, and a babyface heel dynamic, and it's certainly easier to do that than have to go out there and both be bad guys in front of a cold WrestleMania crowd with no story other than people are expecting a dream match. This at least you had low blow spot in there, which played off the finish at Mania.
Okay, but the one thing is like at the Mania match, at the beginning of the Mania match, the crowd was probably as hot for that as any match except for the Ronda match. So the reaction that they did or didn't get at Mania was not because it was babyface versus babyface. It was because they didn't have a great match, and they did have a good match, but
because it's harder to do a babyface versus babyface match. In America.
The people were ready for a dream match. They didn't get a dream match. The people were ready, psyched. They were, it wasn't like they were dead for the match. They were in there for the match. They were ready for a match. They didn't stop reacting to the match. It just never, it just wasn't a great match. This one was a better match, but it got way less crowd reaction than the WrestleMania match. The fans weren't even paying attention to the match, but these guys were out there, and they were, Nakamura especially was, he was working really hard, and AJ, and also their timing was better for whatever reason. I mean, not that it wasn't good before, because it was, as far as timing went at WrestleMania, they were fine. But this one, I think it was just like they were both a step sharper working with each other. I was watching going like, this is like a really, this is like a sharp match, kind of like what Roderick Strong was doing when he was in there in the Rumble, where it's like, wow, he's like sharper than all these other guys. What's it about him? And it's like, yeah, he's just, that's like, it's like he's working, and especially when he was with Daniel Bryan, but it's like, yeah, it's like, it's like that's the difference between an okay, good worker and like a really top-notch worker, is that little extra bit of sharpness. And these guys had that in this match.
So finally, AJ is going for the forearm. Nakamura moved. The ref almost got bumped, so he turns his back, covers his head. Nakamura hits a low blow. AJ got the ropes. Nakamura goes for the Kinshasa. AJ hits the forearm. They brawl out into the announcer's area, and they get counted out. A count out.
Yeah.
That sucked.
Well, the whole thing, you know what? It's like they obviously, want to keep the program going. I suppose they could, their choices were a DQ.
Hey, that's a great idea. AJ finally loses his temper after Nakamura low blows him again, and he gets furious and he low blows the guy. He gets DQ'd, which is it's also a bad finish. But Shinsuke Nakamura can then say, "This coward saved his title by giving me a low blow, and you can set up a rematch that way." When AJ goes, "I'm not a coward. I'll put my title on the line at this next pay-per-view."
Okay.
Instead, they got a double count out, and it's like,
okay, you totally beat them for booking. No doubt about it. Yes, that's much better. Without, that's a lot better idea. I mean, my idea was, you know what? If you like have a match and you have no idea how to get out of it because you want to do it on the next pay-per-view, or whatever the reason is, and you're just like, you know what? This is like, you can just do another match. Like you could put AJ against somebody else and he can just win. And Shinsuke can attack him after the match, and then you can set up the next thing. Because it was like, they're doing a match. It's like, I hate the idea of doing a match and I have no way out of it, so I'll just do like some double count. Now, if they're going to come back on the next show because of the double count out and do a cage match, ha ha ha.
Get out of here.
I know. That it would, but it would make sense.
It would make sense.
Yeah, if they do that, I mean, it would make sense, and maybe they will. Although after this cage match, that was on this show, I don't know how what a great idea their cage match is, but that's a different issue. But yeah, I felt like there's a million things that you can do in this situation, and I felt that they did the least thoughtful one and the one that got over didn't get over well because it's the least thoughtful one, and everyone, you can. It's too bad, but if we'll get like whatever it is, and I don't know what it is, but we'll get a match with a different and a better finish in 2 weeks.
When I saw that finish,
or actually next week, I should say.
When I saw that finish, that was when I concluded Roman ain't winning the title on this show. This is a show designed where just nothing happens here on this show.
Yeah, but boy, did they promote the hell out of it. But you were right; he didn't win the title, which probably has to do with whatever the well. So I don't know. I guess we can get to this later, but they gotta have Strowman beat him, don't they?
That's what I'm thinking. Well, let's get through Undertaker Rusev, and we'll get to it.
Okay.
Undertaker Rusev casket match. This is where Cole talked about the late great Sergeant Slaughter, who is in fact not dead. He also claimed that Undertaker was in, and I quote, the best shape of his entire career.
That was tough to say, wasn't it?
So Undertaker did his match. He was fine. I mean, he wasn't in the best shape of his career, but he wasn't in the worst shape of his career. And Rusev got the heat briefly, put Taker in the accolade. Taker did the zombie sit-up. Rusev wanted them to open the casket. Taker ended up choke-slamming him, throwing him in the casket. Aiden English tried to interfere. He got choke-slammed. He got tombstoned. He threw them both into the casket, Aiden and Rusev, and shut the door for the win. It was fine.
It was all right. Yeah, it was a decent match. The thing that was bad to me is that Rusev had to sell forever.
Yes.
Because of the nature of what they were doing. Because the deal is he would lay out Rusev, put him in the casket, but he didn't close the casket. So Rusev had to just lay there in the casket forever. Then he had to do his spots with English, okay, and then put English in and slam the door. So to me, a choke, I thought it made Rusev and the whole match look really bad because it's a freaking choke slam, which is okay for a 1-2-3, but not to sell for as long as he did, especially a motionless sell. Now, a tombstone, if he'd given Rusev the tombstone, I think that would have felt better. And I think that maybe the idea is we're only going to do one tombstone, and we'll do it to Aiden because he's going last. But I think
he's a lot skinnier and smaller.
Yeah, perhaps that's it. Yeah, maybe they just.
That's what I thought. This guy's coming off hip surgery, for crying out loud. I mean, that's a big, heavy dude to be holding on to when you drop down to your knees.
Yeah, I just saw freaking Adam Page do that spot with Keith Lee last week, and it could, and and I mean, Adam Page is a lot smaller than Undertaker, but he's also a lot younger, and Keith Lee's actually bigger than Rusev. But whatever. The whole point is that it is more dangerous with Rusev to try that move than with English. But I don't know. I guess he doesn't have any other move that he could do, is there? To for a guy to be laid out for that long.
His Goga plot, I guess.
He could have done that, actually, because that's like a knockout move.
Yeah.
So he could have done that, put him in there, and put him to sleep. Yeah, that would have been better than chokeslam. So, whatever. It was okay. All right.
And then we had the Roman Reigns-Brock Lesnar match. So, not much to it. There were 4 Germans at an F5.
All they do was big moves.
A bunch of Superman punches, yep. Tried to climb a couple of times. Roman got the cage door slammed on his head by Paul. And finally, first Paul slid a chair into the ring. Brock got it. Roman speared him, waffled him with chair shots, hit a Superman punch, sets up for the spear. Spears him through the side of the cage. Brock hits the floor first, wins and retains the title. Someone actually predicted that on Wrestling Observer Live, except they thought it'd be through the door. But same deal. And a nothing match with a bullshit finish. Brock Lesnar retains.
Well, the problem is that the rules of a cage match are that whoever's feet hit the floor first wins, which was Roman Reigns. And the whole finish was just... I don't know if Roman got like knocked out and rolled off and then his feet hit the floor or what happened, because everybody was just... At first, so Byron Saxon goes, Lesnar's feet hit the floor first, he won, which didn't happen. And it was clear as clear could be that it didn't happen. So then Corey Graves goes, well, Lesnar's back hit the floor first, which it did. But then they're, so then they're pausing. Then all of a sudden Michael Cole goes, the referee blew the call. It's supposed to be the feet. And then try to make like this controversy. So I don't, just what are you going to do? It's like Brock Lesnar was supposed to win by the rules of the match. Roman Reigns' feet hit the floor. You're supposed to call it as a shoot. In this situation, obviously, I don't want to say you can't, because you could, but it wasn't the plan. So it just sucked. That's all. That's what it was. It just sucked. It made a cheap finish, just, whatever. It's just sucked.
All I know is when this match was over and when the show was over, actually, even before that, on Raw Monday, I concluded Braun Strowman needs to be the guy to beat Brock.
He has to be at this point, because it's just been too many times.
This Roman thing is done. But you know what? Let's say that Strowman beats Brock, and then Brock goes off to do whatever he's going to do. I mean, Roman's like, what do you do with this guy? He could never beat Brock.
You know what? I was talking to somebody tonight, and you know what? There's a lot of things that killed Roman, okay? There's a laundry list of things that killed Roman over the last 3 years, from him winning that Royal Rumble instead of Daniel Bryan, and being pushed when everybody didn't want it. But you know what really hurt him this year? And I don't know that this would have saved him for WrestleMania. It may not have come Mania time. But the whole thing with Roman was that Shield reunion. When the Shield were going to be, when the Shield came back, they were cool. And they, granted, they still kind of were booing Roman, but it was like they were going to go and do all those pay-per-views as a 6-man team. They were going to do that big house show run in all those cities, with the Shield back. And it was going to be the cool, big, basically the big thing before WrestleMania, was the Shield reunion. And, what ended up happening was Dean Ambrose got hurt. The whole thing got shelved. And Roman was back as a single. And, I think that whatever chance he had, and I don't even know if that would have worked for a single once he broke away from the Shield, because at the end he would have had to break away from the Shield for Mania. But it did him no favors, and he's done. I don't know what I don't know what you do with him. I mean, he should be a heel, and if he's, he could win the title and be a heel. Maybe he could win it from Braun. I don't know. My feeling is he has to be a heel. I probably thought that for 3 years now, but I feel it much stronger now than I've always felt it strong from the start. If they'd turned him heel 3 years ago, the people, for all we know, the people would be cheering him by now, and everything would be cool. But they didn't do that, and he just feels dead. I suppose if since Lesnar's not at Backlash, it's probably going to be Money in the Bank, which is kind of considered one of their major pay-per-views now. So I would guess that would be the next one. I don't know that. I'll try to see if I can find out the schedule. I'm sure they're going to try to keep it somewhat secret, but yeah, could they? I don't see how they could book. I mean, even though this finish was such that you could easily book a rematch off of this finish, but what do? It's like you've already done the cage match. You've already done the pinfall. I mean, it's just too much. It's like it's like the program. To me, the program was already past its peak for this show. So to keep it going, yeah, and they did put Strowman over. So yeah, I mean, I gotta think Strowman's, the guy. I mean, and he should be. I mean, he's more over of the two. Just it is harder to book him as champion, but him beating Lesnar, and I don't want him to lose right away, because when a babyface wins a title and loses right away, it's not good for them at all. You got to get a little bit of momentum, because if you just lose, then you're kind of like a failure. You didn't hold the title for very long. So Strowman winning and then getting a few wins in there and then getting screwed out of it and then going on a rampage, I mean, that's a viable story. Because again, I don't see Strowman as a longtime champion. So it's just a question of, I mean, the funny thing is like the heel that I would have chosen is on the other brand, because that would have been Joe, as far as like the guy to do the program with. So they could turn Roman, but what are the other heels on the brand? What are we? Kevin Owens? I don't know. It's like you can do it because he can talk, but well, I don't know. I don't feel Kevin Owens is the guy. Roman turning could be the guy. Who else is there at that level?
I think it's pretty clear it's going to be Braun.
No. I know that, but I mean, somebody's got to beat Braun. I mean, I can't see Braun.
Dude, let's not worry about that now. Let's get the title on Braun, then we can worry about it later.
Well, you got to think about it, because Braun's not the long-term champion guy.
Why not? Who else is? It ain't Roman.
But he's still got to have matches.
He does have to have matches, but I mean,
he's a lot better off challenge. I mean, he's not better off being a long-term champion. It won't. I mean, unless they got.
Well, they don't have a lot of options, so
unless they got some super heels for him to work with. If they got some super heels, Braun can be a great champion. But you need super heels to work with a babyface like that on top.
Let's get through this Royal Rumble here. We'll be here all night. 50 men, the Greatest Royal Rumble. Number 1, Daniel Bryan. Number 2, Dolph Ziggler. Wrestled around for a while. It was fine. Nothing special, but it was fine. Sin Cara's in next. Gives Dolph his one-arm deadlift powerbomb. Ziggler tosses him outside. He's out of here. Curtis Axel is in next. The old Mr. Perfect remix music. They're still calling him Mr. Raj, though. We have Mark Henry in next, who is retired, but he came back for the show.
He looked in good shape, by the way.
He's in pretty good shape. He looked smaller.
Yeah. Well, who was it when he was in there with? Oh, it was the sumo guy.
Yep.
I mean, it was like he was so much lighter than the sumo guy.
Yep.
So it was like, they said the sumo guy was like 398, and if that's the case, Henry looked. I just saw Mark Henry. I mean, I didn't really think of him because he's so big that you don't think of him as smaller, but he actually is a lot smaller than he was like years and years. Not smaller, but lighter than he was years and years ago.
That would be smaller, though.
Yes, I know, but if I say Mark Henry's smaller, Mark Henry will probably get mad.
I see. You don't want that.
No,
he didn't say weaker.
Well, but when you get smaller, you whatever. I'm gonna poor Mark. I mean, Mark, whatever.
Well, anyway, he tossed Axel out of the ring.
Yeah.
Mike Kanellis in next, and tossed him, trying to set the record, but he didn't make that either. So got eliminated, but not quick enough to make history.
Yeah, poor guy.
Hiroki Sumo.
I will say this. Kanellis looked in really good shape.
Yep. Hiroki Sumi's in next. He's a legitimate sumo, just retired, I think, last year, who I don't think has ever done pro wrestling. Gets in there for the stare down with Mark Henry. Henry tosses him. Ziggler and Bryan toss Mark Henry, so it's down to the two of them again. Victor is in next. who actually looked really good, but he's Victor, so they're never going to do anything with him.
What? Victor's a good worker. He's just in a dead gimmick.
Yes.
And, and he has a bad partner, so it's like he's just kind of like, he's like Primo Colón. Primo Colón's an awesome worker, but you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't matter.
So Kofi Kingston is in next. Victor, by the way, got tossed. Tony Nese and his abs come out next. Lots of elimination
Tony Nese looked good.
Teases.
Tony Nese is I was glad to see he's really good.
We had Dash next, and
didn't get to show nothing.
No. Daniel Bryan, by the way, he was playing Ric Flair in 1992, where every single time some new guy got in the ring, he went to work with him. Wanted a chance to work with everybody. Hornswoggle's in next, yanked out Dash Wilder. We had Tony Nese tossing Hornswoggle with a running knee, and maybe they can feud on 205 Live, but I think Swoggle is above the 205-pound weight limit right now.
Boy, I hope not.
Could be wrong, but Primo Colón in next. Crowd was dead. Xavier Woods in next. They did the Kofi elimination spot, which is basically he got tossed. He landed on Xavier's shoulders on the ring apron. They got in the ring. They danced. Tony Nese jumped in to dance with him. They all danced, and then they lifted him up and tossed him out of the ring. He's gone. Bo Dallas in next to his old Bo Dallas music. Kurt Angle comes in, gets a big pop. He can barely run down this ramp. Just looks like his back is killing him.
I thought it was his knees, but what's amazing to me with Kurt is like he's walking down the aisle and I'm going like, oh my God, he's so broken down. And then he crosses the ropes and he turns into Kurt Angle.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, once in the ring, he was, it's just doing all this stuff and just, he didn't look bad. Everything he did looked good. I was going like, I can't wait for him to work with Daniel Bryan. And he did, but the people didn't like. I think if that was in the United States, I think that when he squared off with Daniel Bryan, it would have gotten a really big reaction, but it didn't here. But it's just so weird, like watching poor Kurt hobble down to the ring practically, and then all of a sudden, that was something. It's like Terry kind of like Terry Funk in a lot of ways.
Suplexed everybody all over. He tossed Bo. He tossed Primo. He tossed Dolph with an overhead belly-to-belly to the outside. We had Scott Dawson, Goldust, Connor coming in next. Not a lot happening. Elias came out playing his guitar. Spent forever teasing a concert, but then hit the ring and tossed both of the New Day and Connor. Luke Gallows in next. Kurt gave Daniel Bryan the Olympic slam, but then Elias eliminated Kurt Angle. That's a big elimination. Rhino's in next.
They sort of teased that that may mean something, that he threw out his boss.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be a storyline on Raw. Maybe they'll just drop it. Who knows?
We had Drew Gulak in next. Tucker Knight has been.
Okay, so the deal. It's pretty obvious to watch, but the one thing that I have always been told by people in WWE, whether this is true or not, is their belief, is that even if it doesn't matter in the United States, to the foreign audiences, the foreign audiences wants to see big guys. Okay, before it used to be whenever business was bad, Vince would go to big guys. Now, that's been proven so wrong, but they still cling on to that, and that's why you had like Dan Matha and Babatunde Ibusi and
every guy that they called up from somewhere was a big dude.
Yeah, and it's like of Tucker, and it's like of that team, Tucker and Otis. Otis has like 10 times the charisma of Tucker, and he's got the cool look because he's a big guy, but he's a short guy. Tucker's just like a nondescript big guy who's actually a hell of an athlete. But yeah, they picked the one with the least charisma of the two that nobody knew. But he was fine in there, and he's the one thing I thought was so weird is Michael Cole just goes, this is Tucker Knight, and he had like 110 wins in high school wrestling and like 80 in college. And 80 wins in Division I is good. And Tucker Knight was a legitimate All-American heavyweight. He was he's a real guy. But 110 wins for a high school wrestler is like, it's good, but it's like when he said it, it's like, God, that's no big deal. That's like not even, I don't even know if Tucker ever won state championship or anything like that. It's like, so he wrestled high school. I'm sure Cody Rhodes had 4 times that number of wins when he was in high school. So it's like, I mean, he's reading stats, but it's like, that stat means nothing. It's a nothing stat. I mean, even 80 in college isn't something I would trumpet. Would I say he was a legitimate All-American? Yeah. But 80 wins in your college career, when you hear about guys that are 120-6 and things like that, 80 is not that big of a number.
We had Tucker tossing Drew Gulak. Bobby Roode in next. So he goes to slingshot Dawson into the corner, but it kind of got botched, and Dawson sort of jumped to hit his head on the post, and Cole just buries the guy. Looks like he eliminated himself, he says.
It did, but don't call attention to it.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, that was another one. It was just, like I said, not a good night for the announcers.
Fandango's in next. Chad Gable, Rey Mysterio. Mysterio got a big pop, looked great, moved great.
Yeah, he looked like a superstar out there.
Yep, tossed Gallows. Mojo Rawley's in next. He tossed Fandango. Tyler Breeze is in next. They had a spot which was a funny idea, but nobody laughed. Mojo shoves Tyler off the apron. Fandango catches him. Fandango puts Tyler back on the apron. Mojo throws him off again, and he's eliminated.
Yeah. It didn't work.
No. It's good on paper. Biggie comes out next with pancakes, throws him at Tucker Knight, gives him the big ending, and throws him out. We have Carl Anderson in next. Apollo Crews. Fans were very tired at this point. They would only react if a big star came out. So Apollo tossed Chad Gable, who somehow landed right on his face on the outside. Hopefully he's okay. We had Roderick Strong in next. He looked awesome. Running wild on everybody, backbreakers.
He was the best guy in the whole match.
Tossed Rhino with a knee strike.
Yeah, it's like when you watch a guy who's like a really good worker in WWE, I mean, it's just like they stand out. But I mean, I guess Strong would probably stand out anywhere. The guy is like, he's just so good.
We had Randy Orton in next. Hit Apollo with a mistimed RKO, which is very rare for Randy Orton, so
yeah,
I don't know if I can blame him. Toss Mojo, Apollo, and Anderson. Heath Slater is in next. Baba Tunde from NXT, who I don't think has ever been on NXT TV even once.
No, he hasn't. But
he's big.
He will be soon though, because they're doing a gimmick with him managing Leo Rush, with the idea that because he's 6'9" and Leo Rush is whatever he is, 5'1", 5'2". It's a tremendous visual to have this giant manager for this tiny, fantastic worker. Baba Tunde is. He's a really big dude.
We had Baron Corbin in at 38. He dragged the Drifter outside, ran roughshod on everybody, tossed Bobby Roode and Roderick Strong. Then we had Titus O'Neil. Titus O'Neil runs down the ramp, and right as he's about to get into the ring,
oh my God,
he slips, he falls on his belly, and he slides all the way under the ring.
This will be the most memorable moment of this show forever.
Yep. And
so he's running. It wasn't so much he slipped; he tripped on the mat that's outside the ring. He's just running, and he just his instep trips on it, and he falls flying. And it's like not even that he slides like a little bit. He slides and goes all the way under the ring.
Oh yeah,
it was.
And he's a tall guy, so he got a long ways under there.
I mean, he just slid like he was sliding for a base at baseball or something, and he's sliding right under the ring. It was the.
So we didn't even see it because it was not a worked fall; it was real. And so they've got the camera focusing on the ring so you can see him slide in, but he never slides in. And all of a sudden, the announcers just start howling with laughter. And I guess in the back, everybody back there is howling with laughter. They demand replay after replay after replay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Dan Mathis is next.
So I would guess that on TV Monday that we will not hear the end of this. And
no, his whole career now, he'll be a clumsy guy.
This will be, yes, this will make his career, and not make it good, but it will make his career.
We had Dan Mathis next, another tall guy. And then Braun Strowman came in. He immediately tossed Babatunde, immediately tossed Dan Matha, then Big E, then Heath Slater. Ty Dillinger comes in next, not at number 10. Strowman tosses Titus, tosses Ty. Barr goes after Ray. Orton tosses Corbin. Elias tosses Randy Orton. A lot of eliminations for Elias, so they must be doing something with this guy.
Oh, yeah. They think he's a superstar, so he's going to be... He may be the guy that they use as that big heel, that in that spot that we were talking about, which I don't know that... I mean, he's in a way, he's very over, but in other ways, like when he does like a serious match, it doesn't carry over that well sometimes. Often, actually. Like even what the last match he did was with Bobby Roode. And it's like that was kind of like just a nothing match.
We had Kurt Hawkins at 43. Tried to flee. Braun caught him, took him inside, threw him out. Lashley's in next. Runs wild on Elias and finally tosses him. We got Bobby and Braun squaring off. They have a big brawl. Nobody cared. Bryan hits his corner drop kicks on both guys. Out comes the great Khali. Starts chopping everybody.
Even Strowman sold the chop.
That's right. Gets tossed quickly. To which Michael Cole says, "Glad he made that trip from India." Like India's so far away. Compared
to the United
every
States.
other person in this match who was flying from the United States, yes.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens, number 46. Bryan, at this point, set the record, the all-time record for the Royal Rumble. Kevin hit the pop-up powerbomb on him. Shane McMahon, number 47. He runs wild on Kevin with his horrific strikes.
Oh, God, those punches looked horrible.
Shane and Bryan go after Kevin Owens. And I will say, Shane McMahon's strikes are absolutely horrific. But his yes kicks were not bad, and they were better than the Miz's. So I got to give the guy credit for that. Shelton Benjamin, 48. Big Cass, 49. I nearly died when Big Cass came out because I knew this was going. Goes after Bryan. There is a botch here where Big Cass, who was coming back from knee surgery, he slides into the ring, and as he stands up, Braun Strowman does the big roar spot where everyone goes flying, and somebody takes out Big Cass's knee on accident. And I thought, oh man, he's done again. But he moved gingerly for a second and then was back going again.
That's right. He was down. He was down for a while. But that happened twice because we got dropped on his head. He was down for a long time too.
Yeah, hopefully he's fine. Shane did the coast-to-coast drop kick. Number 50.
Like, did you see how his head snapped on that one?
Like every time he does this? I'll get to him in a second.
This was worse. This was like when he did that move, the way he landed, it was like, oh, God.
We have number 50, Chris Jericho, got a big pop. Him and Owens got into a brawl. Bryan ran wild on Jericho, tells Shane to hit the coast-to-coast. He's about to do it when Braun flies in, grabs Shane by the neck, tosses him off the top. He crashes through a table outside.
That was a crazy-ass bump.
This is not going to end well for Shane McMahon. I'm sad about it. I don't understand it, but I've accepted it. Hey, Braun...
the thing with Shane that people don't know is when he does this stuff, he's hurting for a long time.
Yeah, this is not going to end well.
It probably already hasn't. You know what I mean?
I'm quite sure because I've seen him doing his interviews. This is not looking good, but they keep trotting him out there. And the son of Vince McMahon. And
he feels, because his gimmick, unfortunately, is that he does crazy things, and he's like, what is he, 40, 47, 48?
Yeah.
40, I don't know, whatever it is.
I'm pretty sure it's 47.
It depends on when his birthday is, but he turns 48 this year, because I think, but whatever his age is, that's whatever.
Oh, he just turned 48. I was wrong. Whatever. January 15th.
So he's this is, it's like your body, oh God, he's probably hurting right now from that thing, but he's going to do something one of these days, and it's probably going to be the next 2 years, and it's not going to, you're right. It's going to be sad. I mean, the only good thing about him is that he has time to recuperate because he's not out there on the road every day. But even so, at the age that he is, I don't care what he's doing. It's like, I mean, it's not like he's 30. You know, it's like this is going to be a bad situation.
So, Braun tossed Lashley, Jericho, and Owens. Bryan tries to eliminate Strowman from behind, but it doesn't happen. He turns around, and Big Cass boots Daniel Bryan and eliminates him. Tosses him over the top. So it comes down to, you'll never guess, two big dudes. Braun Strowman and Big Cass. Strowman.
Okay, so we didn't talk about the Brain Buster.
We did talk about the Brain Buster.
Okay, so Bobby Lashley was supposed to do his delayed suplex on Cass. Now, I don't know whose fault this was. He tries to get him up, and he loses him and just drops him. So then he goes for it a second time, and he lost him again and dropped him right on his head. And they called it a brain buster, but it was, he was going to do that delayed suplex that he always does. And Cass just laid there for a while. And then, finally he got up and everything, but that was pretty scary.
So it comes down to Strowman and Cass. Strowman crotches him on the top, gives him a running body block, wins the Greatest Royal Rumble. And Vince is in the ring with a Saudi official. They've got the Greatest Royal Rumble Championship belt, as well as a trophy, which they give to Strowman. They're really into belts these days, giving them to everybody. And that was the end of the show. Mm-hmm. That was a long-ass show.
5-hour show.
5 hours.
Yeah.
Let's not do that anymore.
Yeah, I know. But I'm guessing that SummerSlam's going to be 6.
Well, at least it's in August. All right, we got time for a little bit of news here. Tell us about the New Japan.
So they've had a bunch of shows this week. They had Kanemaru and Desperado beat Hiromu Takahashi and Bushi in the junior heavyweight tag team title match. Then the next day, 24th, it was a Toa Henare and Tomohiro Ishii just in a singles match, which was pretty good. By the way, you got to watch those opening match guys. They're so good. But this was like the finish of this match was really pretty good. And I mean the thing is like deep down Henare can't beat Ishii, so there's something missing. I know some people who thought this was like a match of the year level, and there was an exchange that was phenomenal. I thought the match was very good, but not great, but very good, and certainly elevated Toa Henare for sure in that loss, because he looked good. And Ishii always does something really unique. And then when they were doing this exchange, there was like a body blow, and Ishii sold it like he broke his rib. And I think at that moment it was almost like the people were sensing, oh my God, Ishii broke his rib. Maybe he's going to win, or maybe Henare really will win. So it was that usual very subtle but brilliant stuff that Ishii sometimes does. And then the Finlay and Jay White was very good. That's another one where I've read a lot of people saying like this match was phenomenal, and I honestly thought that the Jay White and Adam Page as a match was better. This was better because this was better as far as crowd reaction went. Because I mean, Jay White and Adam Page's match, it was like nobody wanted to see it, but they worked their ass off. This one, these guys, they worked really hard. But it was a main event on the show. The problem is the people are not, and I mean the house was the same thing. They had a bad house for New Japan at Korakuen. It's like they don't see Jay. I'm gonna say Jay White maybe a little bit better, but they don't see Finlay. I mean, he hasn't had the signature wins. They just don't see Finlay at that level yet. But he did have a really good match. I mean, his timing's good. He's these guys. There is a story with these two guys started together, and Jay has progressed faster than Finlay in storyline since he's the U.S. champion, and Finlay still is looking for a big win. So there's something there, but not. I mean, I don't know. It was quite good. Then today I haven't seen, but Goto beat Juice Robinson and Okada and Will.
I heard that match was awesome.
The Okada Ospreay and Tanahashi. And
no, the Juice Robinson match.
I haven't seen it yet. I was going to watch that tomorrow. I I have a moratorium on when it's a 5-hour show. It's pretty hard to watch that much more wrestling in a day. But yeah, I'll watch that. And then tomorrow night, our time, it's 11 p.m. Pacific, so I'm going to watch this one live. They've got the show from Kumamoto with a strong double. Naito, in this match, they've been building up the whole tour very hard. Naito and challenging Minoru Suzuki for the IC title, which, given the quality of matches that those two have had as singles of late, might be really freaking great. And Sonata and Evil and Lance Archer and Davey Boy Smith Jr. And then, probably, because they're doing stuff with Tanahashi and Okada every day anyway. They'll probably do something. They're doing like, multi-man match with them and also with Ospreay and Kushida to build for the third and the fourth, where they've got a lot of big matches. Kumamoto sold out. The Tanahashi Okada match is sold out. So good. Jay White and Finlay attendance, not so good.
Right, a couple of quick MMA notes here. Fedor and Mir.
Yeah, I will say this. Frank Mir's 261 and he had abs. I'd seen Frank Mir, from a couple weeks back, and I was worried about his conditioning. And perhaps at 261, maybe I should still worry. I don't know. It's like Fedor hasn't looked good in years and years. Mir hasn't looked good in years and years. They're fighting tomorrow night on the Bellator show in Chicago. I heard that it's the second biggest gate, except for when they did the MSG show, in Bellator history. So Fedor can draw in Chicago. I mean, that's the one thing. No matter, whatever. Nothing much on the undercard. It's really a one-match show, and it probably will end quick and probably will end with somebody getting knocked out. I don't know which one it will be. It'll probably just be who connects first. Fedor just hasn't looked good in a long time. So he's a lot small. He's a lot smaller when they were standing there. He just looked a lot smaller. But no, I'm sure Fedor still has the power if he connects, and Mir can be connected on. So it's like the Mitrione fight. Whoever connects first, or if they connect at the same time, whoever gets up first and then falls down again. So I think it's the same type of a fight. So it'll probably be because of who it is. It'll probably be pretty exciting as long as it goes.
Our Davie going into the UFC Hall of Fame.
Well, he deserves it. I mean, there's I can say both good and bad about Art. Art's an incredible talker. I just talked to him yesterday for the story that I did. And great storyteller, charming guy. I mean, he's that kind of a guy. I know there were people that were upset with him going in the Hall of Fame because he, when he was working for K1 and Douglas Dedge died, and he, did that big letter about how, violent MMA is and how it should be banned or whatever, and he knows it because he started it. That kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but now he's embraced the fact that he kind of is the guy who, look, if you're talking about major historical figures in the history of MMA, Art Davie is absolutely 100% one of them, and with no Art Davie, there is no MMA. There is none. I mean, even more, Art, it's funny because Art told me that, like, he thought that this was the year Lorenzo Fertitta should go in, and, Lorenzo Fertitta, more than anyone, needs to be in that Hall of Fame. But he'll choose and he'll go in whenever. And it's interesting today because Art went in today, and today's the 25th anniversary of essentially. Art came up with this idea. I mean, like, he'll say it was after he got beat up in a fight on the beach when he was a boxer, and he took on this high school wrestler, and he thought, I'm a boxer, and he's going to shoot on me, and I'm just going to knock him out. So the guy shoots on him. Art throws the punch. He ducks the punch. Art's on his back, and the guy submits him in seconds, So Art got his ass kicked, and it was just like, there's more to this fighting than I thought. So, that was that. And, he knew about Gene LaBelle and Milo Savage and pancreation in the Olympics and all this. And he read an article, which I read in 1989 in Playboy magazine on the Gracies. So he was living in L.A., and he started taking classes from Jorge and Gracie and started becoming friends with Jorge and Gracie. And he had this idea of this tournament with all these different guys. And it's, War of the Worlds, which was later changed to UFC. But War of the Worlds was the original name. And it was going to be what the original, tournament, 8-man tournament with guys of different styles. And there was a lot that went into it. But him in, 89, 90... he starts, and this is his goal, is to put this thing on and get it on television, pay-per-view, something. So it goes to everyone, every sports channel, every ESPN, Prime, Ticket, HBO, Showtime, up and down the list, everybody. Everyone says, never, no, absolutely not. You're crazy. We will never put this on the air. And then on April 27th, 1993, he gets a letter from Campbell McLaren who says, I like the idea. We're going to go with it. And that led to eventually the very first UFC, which took place in Denver. And, I've got an article on MMA fighting that kind of explains everything, and I'll have something in the Observer as well on it. But, he was... If anyone would be called the creator of this guy who spearheaded it happening, like a lot, Bob Meyerowitz will try to claim credit, Campbell will try to claim credit, and they deserve some credit. Dave Isaacs was there, but Art was there Art was there first. Art wrote a great book just a tremendously entertaining book that he wrote. There Are No Rules, with him and Sean Wheelock, who we've had both of them on the shows. And if you want to know the history of it, of how UFC happened, that book is tremendous. So, So Art belonged in, and the days. What a weird, what a weird coincidence that it's 25 years to the day of the acceptance letter that there was actually going to be a show. So it's kind of a cool deal there.
And finally, UFC Calgary.
Yeah, so they're going to do the show in Calgary after 6 years. It's going to be on Fox. They announced Jose Aldo and Jeremy Stevens, which is, it's an interesting fight. And there really wasn't much else on this show. I know they want Nico Montano and Shevchenko, in theory. Or something else, because they announced Aldo and Stevens as the co-main event, which means that there's a main event still to come for that show, but they're going to run the Saddle Dome. If you remember, years ago, 2012, they went to Calgary. They did a $4 million gate. It was one of the best-selling debuts in any market in history. Calgary was just a town that was going to be like a great UFC city. And Calgary always had done great pay-per-view wise, which is funny because if you ever looked at like where UFC was the strongest, whether it was TV ratings or whatever, they were always the traditional strong wrestling markets. St. Louis, Memphis, Memphis TV ratings, were always like the biggest, things like that. Calgary. So anyway, the whole point is that show was one of the worst shows ever. I mean, literally, really just a freaking horrible show, to the point where Dana White said, this is a great market and we apologize and they deserve a big show. And they didn't come back for 6 years. They're finally getting a show. Hopefully they get a better show this time.
All right, on that note, we are totally out of time, everybody. I want to thank you all for listening today. Pat LaPrade was on the show a couple of days ago. If you haven't checked that out, New Observer Radio from, Thursday. So we've done Wednesday, Thursday, Friday here straight, so go up there and check that out. Lots of stuff, new observers, new radio shows. That's it.
Would you talk about Hangman?
What's up with Hangman?
Okay, so he has a groin injury. He did work tonight in West Palm Beach, but He barely got in there. So I don't know. And no one, I don't know if anyone knows the severity of it, but he's got a groin injury. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we're out of here, everybody. We'll talk to you again after a while.